I was going so fast. Everything was a blur. It was such an adrenaline rush. I was so close to the finish line, I could feel it. But then, someone hit me. Someone hit me and knocked me off my path. That someone was my best friend. I told him that if he didn't stop winning, I would hit him. Like, literally hit him. And he didn't stop, so I did. And then he just laughed. Now, people will have you believe that my acts of violence come from playing violent video games, but we were only playing Mario Kart. Now, I'm here to break this mold and show how video games actually help more than they harm. And I will accomplish this by 3 things. First, a brief video game history. Second, I will talk about how video games help mentally. And third, I will talk about how video games help education. So first, brief video game history. Video games have been around since as long as I can remember, but they have been around a lot longer than just the 12 years I've been able to play them. The first video game came out in 1958 on an oscilloscope, which was a big rectangular machine, kind of like a computer. This game was an early version of virtualized table tennis. Now, according to Amanda Cudler on InfoPlease.com, she had a timeline in which she overviewed the video games, and I will hit the main points. So, in 1961, the first computer game came out. It was called Space War. In 1971, the first arcade game came out, and it was a more difficult version of Space War. It was called Computer Space. No one liked to play Computer Space because it was too complicated. Now, in 1972, the first console came out. It was the Odyssey console, and you can take that one into your house because it was a home console. And later that year, the first video game for that console came out, and it was an early version. It was a more designed version of table tennis called COMM. Now, in the 80s, researchers began looking into the benefits of video games and how they affect our brains. And although they came out and they were more accessible, they weren't as popular as you might think until the late 90s. In the late 90s, video games were more accessible. We had more consoles that we could use and a more variety of games. As you can see now, not only we have our home consoles, but we also have our portable devices, such as our Nintendo DSIs, or even our laptops or our cell phones. Video games have become more in demand. Now, an Oxford University study states that video games actually don't cause violence. This came after they did a study using the game Half-Life 2, which is a violent video game. They had 40 people who had never played this game come in, and 20 of them got a tutorial and 20 of them didn't. When they were all shoved in together, it turned out that the people who didn't have a tutorial were more angry and upset that they couldn't master the game as fast as the other 20. This showed that their incompetency for this game made them angry, not the violence itself. Now, you can also see that it's also the feeling of competitiveness that makes someone angry and violent, and not necessarily that it's a violent video game. Now, through research, we have seen that video games can help the ill. For example, there have been 3 universities that have made a huge impact, huge research with the brain and video games. For example, the University of Utah, the University of Washington, and North Carolina State University. The University of Utah studied children with cancer, Parkinson's disease, and/or depression. And it turns out that these kids got to play a game in which they shot hazardous cells, like cancer. So they shot this, and it gave them hope for the future. It gave them hope for tomorrow, that someday they will be cancer-free, just like in their Now, at Washington State University, or the University of Washington, we have seen that the soldiers coming back from the war in Afghanistan and the Middle East, they got to play this game called Snow World, in which it was just an endless amount of skill off fights. And by playing this game, they didn't need as much pain medication as those who didn't get to play Snow World. It gave them something to be distracted. It gave them a form of different outlook of life just by playing this simple game, Snow World. Now, at North Carolina State University, they studied the elderly, and it turns out that the elderly who play video games tend to be happier because, as well as the soldiers, it gives them distraction. distraction from their everyday struggles, like not being able to get up as quickly as they used to be, or other things like not being able to see their children. It helps with distraction. Now, video games also help stimulate parts of our brain, such as our right hippocampus, our right frontal cortex, or cerebellum. You can play video games, and it helps stimulate all these parts of your brain. For example, if you play first-person shooter games, it helps with memory and perception, as well as other social skills such as spatial awareness and knowing where you are. There's this man who had a brain injury. He got part of his brain taken out, and his wife stated that he was once an avid cook, but after his brain surgeries, he wasn't able to navigate around the house as well. So his neurologist prescribed to him to play the game called Destiny. And after playing Destiny, it turns out that this man was more capable of walking around the house by himself without as much help. And thanks to this all thanks because of the stimulation that happened in his brain. Now, when we think about video games, we think about lazy and how they don't really help anything. And I know this from personal experience because my brother plays video games nonstop, and he would rather play video games than do anything else. But it turns out that video games can retain a child's attention for a long period of time, so we can teach them something. This process is called edutainment, education and entertainment. It's fun. And by having edutainment, we can teach a child a skill. They can learn how to solve it and then solve it by themselves. Edutainment is a wonderful way to think about video games. Although there are not very many video games in which we can teach someone a skill and then help how to solve it, we have the means of changing the way we do things. Now, according to an article on the Huffington Post and an article on Forbes magazine, they overviewed that those who play video games are more likely to do things better. For example, surgeons are able to perform a better surgery, like a brain surgery, because their hands are steady. Their hand and eye coordination is benefited from playing video games. So next time you think about video games, think about that even though they've been around for a long amount of time, they've only become popular very recently. And it's unjust to say that someone is violent because their video games that they play are violent. Think about how they help many people who are ill with mental diseases or mental illnesses. Also think about the benefits that you can have in future generations by being able to teach them things that we ourselves did not learn when we were younger. Now, it's not about getting to the finish line, but it's having fun while getting there. So don't be violent when you play video games.